average of about $14,000 per family, and it's increasing at a very rapid rate. Since 2006, it's increased 230%. Why is this cost quality problem here? Well, it's an issue that we've built up over time. We have built up value chains and a care delivery process that has become very bloated and fat. As we've built up these systems over time, we've created too much complexity and distance between the patients and the caregivers, or the two ends of the value chain, as I like to call them. All of these different companies that sit inside these value chains in healthcare have built up infrastructure, relational databases, all these complex and costly systems. And upon those systems, we've built applications that have mostly been designed to solve man-made issues. I've been part of the problem. My 22-year history in healthcare has been building systems on top of these relational databases that try to help people collaborate. But what I've realized is that we need to have a fundamentally new conversation around this cost quality problem that we have, and we need to move the conversation towards uh, creating a foundation where trust is at the software, the protocol level, and we can create new digital assets that can be transacted across these value chains in a more efficient and effective way. So, as you all know, this is all a derivative of the Bitcoin blockchain. All of our efforts in the blockchain space are derivatives from Bitcoin. But as you know, Bitcoin has a narrow definition of what a digital asset is. It has a lot of strengths, but we needed Ethereum to come along to introduce a platform that allows us to think in a new way about the movement of more than just a currency. In healthcare, we consider there's lots of different types of digital assets that we think about. Those digital assets include medical records, claims moving through a claims life cycle, products moving through a supply chain, patients moving through an episode of care, and then also there's data assets. And we're also starting to explore new types of service assets, so tokenized services that can be traded over the blockchain on a two-sided marketplace. When you combine these concepts of healthcare assets, tokenized assets, with enterprise businesses and a new decentralized health infrastructure, you can really start to tackle some of the cost quality challenges that exist in the marketplace today. So that's what Hashed Health is busy doing. We're focused purely on healthcare, and we are moving forward with some tokenization of these different assets. We have a growing enterprise business, so the state of Illinois, the CDC, and lots of both public and private institutions in the United States, and a growing number of international institutions are all participating in the Hashed Health ecosystem. And we're now introducing the concept of tokenized health assets to these enterprises and these institutional organizations. And it's a very exciting space. A few areas where there's been most traction in Hashed Health and we're busy building are in the areas of identity, first of all. So in the healthcare, there's a couple different forms of identity we think about. There's patient identity and patient reputation. So that's things like medical records, then and kind of IoT and wearables. There is physician identity. So it's licensure, credentialing, privileging, outcomes data. Those are the things that we think about when we think about physician identity, or a physician's wallet, or a physician's reputation in the marketplace. And we've got different IoT device identities. When you think about, you now have basically identity on one side of a marketplace, identity on the other side, the patient being one side, the physician being the other, the buyer and supplier of healthcare services. We can then start to think about how do we program the value transfer between those two endpoints in the value chain. that's where tokenization becomes really interesting in solving some of these value-based care issues that I discussed a few minutes ago. Using a token, you can start to program value transfer in a much more meaningful way. For example, you can start to connect the payments process with patient behavior attestation, or you can start to connect benefits or incentive design with the payment process. That's something that's just not possible with fiat currency or the current claims system in the United States. So what you're really talking about here is a very exciting model where you're able to, for the first time ever, embed economics, rational economics, into the care delivery process. And you can start connecting payments with incentives, payments with wellness, incentives and wellness. There's all kinds of different, smart payment models that you can start to come up with. And I know Andreas Antonopoulos is the speaker at the conference, and one of the things that he likes to talk about is this concept of changing the container. And I think that's a beautiful concept around you're changing the container of how money flows through a system, how value is exchanged. And that allows us to, the real only limitation becomes our imagination around what we can do. It has real potential to really help consumers and put the power of uh, in the hands of the consumer. Whereas in a lot of countries, mostly, very importantly, the United States, the power currently is in private infrastructure, such as insurance companies. It's going to allow us to create public infrastructure to replace the privately controlled infrastructure that exists today. So this is basically a $5 trillion opportunity, and we have for the first time ever the ability to kind of rethink the relationship between commerce and care. $5 trillion is just in the United States. When you think about that globally, I think the United States represents over half of the cost globally, actually. But that's a huge market and a huge opportunity for innovators, Hashed Health and others, some of which are speaking, I think, tomorrow at the conference, around how to start solving some of these foundational problems and really help a lot of people out. Hashed Health is busy building our enterprise business. We are growing very quickly in terms of of our consortium and the companies and public and private institutions that are a part of that. Most of the work's done in the United States, and it's now growing globally. We've been spending a lot of time in Asia, a lot of time in Europe, and around the world the last couple months, expanding those efforts, because we know that a lot of those efforts will move more quickly outside the U.S. We are also in the process of having together our first ICO, which will be happening next in the spring, and more to come on that. It will become an interesting addition to the existing enterprise business line that we have. And it'll be a great way to bring together a family of tokens and in terms of solving some of these problems that I mentioned in the presentation. So with that, I'll pause and open the floor to any questions that you have.
Thank you, John. Any question from the audience? No. I have one question for you, John. According to your experience in the healthcare, which preferable platform will you use, IBM Hyperledger or Ethereum Consensus?
Yeah, it's a good question. So our team at Hashed Health has built, we typically use the protocol based off the business problem that we're trying to solve. So the first protocols we ever built on was Hyperledger Fabric. We like Fabric for certain use cases. We also have built on Tendermint, which we feel is a great protocol. ABCI is a nice architecture. We have also built on Ethereum, and we've also partnered with some commercial blockchains. So we've got a team that kind of likes to bounce around between protocols, and it really depends on the use case. An IoT use case is much different than a medical records use case or a supply chain use case.
Okay.
And I think that you have to think about business and technical requirements before you can choose the protocol for that business problem.
Okay, thank you, John. Thank you to join us. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.